Hey, I'm Chase, and this is All Things Random. Today, we're going head-to-head with 3 chronographs. Now I am back in the office. This is my background for at least probably the next few videos while I'm sort of reorganizing my shop. So just sort of bear with it. Now what are we looking at today? Today we're going head to head with 3 separate chronographs. These are very similar, however, very different price points and very different tiers of quality. Now we're going head to head again in 8 different categories. Let's just flip the camera around, dive right into the watches. And here are the 3 chronographs that I'm going to put head to head. The first one is the Pagani Design, the second one is the Aeromat PNY, and the third one is the Undone Snoopy Aces. Now each one of these is a mecha quartz movement, so they're sort of on the same level, same plane when it comes to that. No automatic movements here, but there are some pros and cons to each one of the mecha quartz movements. Now there's going to be 8 categories when we go through each one of these watches. The first one is going to be the case material and the size. The second one is going to be the bracelet or the strap. The third one is going to be the crystal. The fourth one is the dial. The fifth is the movement. The sixth is the water resistance rating. The seventh is the wearability. And the 8th is going to be the price. So we're going to start from cheapest to most expensive. And to do that, we're going to start with the Pagani Design. Now I do have the white gloves on because my hands are fugly. So let's start off with first the case. The case is 3L stainless steel. All of these are going to be the exact same. This has a high polish finish, and the bracelet itself sort of matches in the high polish in the center and brushed on the outside, but this is number 1, and number 1 is going to be the case. Also 40 millimeters in case size. This is the smallest one in the 3. The thing that I really like about this is it does have screw down pushers, which is nice because you're not just going to hit that and unknowingly start your chronograph. It does have a screw down crown, which is also nice. The back is also screw down crown, and I really love the way they did that Pagani design. Now the Aeromat PNY, Paris, New York chronograph. That is sort of a vintage style of an aviation style watch. Now this thing is made of 3L stainless steel. It does have vertical brushing. It is very nicely done, brushing all the way around. It does have some chamfered edging with the high polish, so it gives it a nice little break. It does not offer a screw down crown, and these pushers are not screw. They are only push. It only looks like they're screw down, but they are not. The case size on this is going to be 42 millimeters, so this is a little large. However, the lug to lug is only 49, so even though this is a larger watch, it doesn't sit so large on the wrist. The Undone Snoopy Aces. This watch, I love this watch. When I first looked at this watch, I'll be honest with you, this is a lot of nostalgia for me. I am huge when it comes to the space program. Really love NASA, really love the Apollo missions. This I had custom made through their website, and I paid the hefty price for it. I chose the Snoopy that goes on the dial and even the Apollo 10 because if you know anything about space, the Apollo 10 was the first and original Snoopy lunar lander. So let's talk about the sizing of this watch. 316L stainless steel. This has 41.8 millimeter diameter. This is very similar to what the Omega Speedmaster looks like when it comes to the finishing, when it comes to everything like that. It's extremely similar. In fact, I compared this to an original Speedmaster space watch. Really like the look of this. Very nice vintage. I very much also like the lugs on this. I like the fact that they're very small. They're not overly done. It just gives it a nice vintage appeal. Now let's talk about the bracelet. The bracelet is a solid link bracelet, solid in links, high polish centered, brushed outer appearance, and it does have sort of a mock fold-over clasp that would be on like a Rolex. Let's open this up, and it is a milled clasp, which is good to see at the price point here. We'll talk about the price point in number 8. It does offer micro adjustments, but very small. See right up in there, you see it has 1, 2, 3 on the inside. This clasp is a little hard to open up, especially with gloves on. I really have never worn this on the strap because the micro adjustment just isn't there. The bracelet on this watch is a multi-link, a 5-link bracelet. They are solid links. Underneath it does have solid in links, nice to see. Push pins only in this, and the clasp is also nothing to write home about. A fold over safety clasp, push pins to open it up, and it is just a pressed clasp. Now this is a little depressing because it should have at least, I would say, a milled clasp. It's only a few more dollars for one. I think they sort of, skimped on that. It does have a few micro adjustments on the side, 3 to be exact. Other than that, overall, I'm a big fan of the way this bracelet is. It does have some nice vertical brushing on this as well. And I really do like the design of the 5-link bracelet. Now let's talk about the strap that came on this watch. This is a canvas orange strap. It really matches that orange Snoopy very well. It is very well done, quick release Cordova fabric. And it really matches everything very well. And it also came with a distressed leather strap. The leather strap is not the best leather strap. Now that I'm building my own leather straps, it was extremely thin and cheaply made. It does do well on the wrist. It is comfortable, but it really didn't last very long. That's why it's on this orange strap. I really like the look of this. I really liked the bright orange. You can see I've been wearing it, so it's dulled out a little bit. I wore the hell out of that leather strap, which wasn't very long. Now, number 3, the crystal. The crystal is a flat sapphire crystal. It's very nice to see a sapphire crystal. This is going to be the only one out of all 3. Dead flat, nothing really to write home about. The crystal on this watch is a step up from just mineral glass. This is mineral glass that's coated in sapphire crystal, not sapphire. This is a dead flat piece of mineral crystal coated in sapphire, but nothing to write home about. The crystal on this is a K1 mineral crystal, and it is extremely domed. I really like the look of this domed crystal. Little bit depressed that it is only a K1 mineral crystal, which they say is, tougher than a standard mineral crystal, but how tough is a mineral crystal when you wear this every single day? It's not as strong as sapphire. However, a domed sapphire crystal, they're hard to make. They're extremely costly, and this watch is not cheap, so I'm not willing to pay an extra few $100s for them to justify putting a domed sapphire. Now let's talk about the dial. The dial is very nice, and this is a Daytona homage. The printing is extremely nice. It does have applied indices, and you know what? Even the subdials are very nicely laid out. It does have a subdial for the second hand down at the 6, 24-hour at the 3, then it has a hour timer over there at the 9. It does have textured rings around those, and all in all, I think it's extremely clean. It does have, down between the 4 and 5 o'clock position, a date window just hiding behind that minute hand. The dial on this watch. I'm an extremely big fan of the dial on this watch. I like the 24-hour chapter ring along the inside. In fact, let me go ahead and realign this bezel because that's been bugging the crap out of me. Now let's talk about the dial on this watch. I'm a huge fan of the dial on this. I like the vintage look. I like the vintage aesthetic. And not only do I like those two things, but I also like the fact that it only offers 2 subdials at the 3 and at the 9. At the 6 o'clock is a date window. However, is there one thing that you notice is missing? And that is the counting second hand. I really like the fact that they left the second hands off of this because it gives you more of the illusion that this is an automatic watch and not just a quartz watch. So you're missing that ticking second hand. To me, A second hand on a chronograph that's just ticking is no reason to have that subdial there. It really doesn't matter, because if you have a chronograph, well, you just hit the pusher and guess what? Now you can time something. There's no reason to have that additional second hand, in my opinion. It does have an hour dial and it does have a 24-hour dial. They could have just done a 24-hour subdial on the timing, since this is like a flight chronograph. I mean, you could be flying for a long period of time. There's no reason why you need an actual 24-hour subdial on this, because all I have to do is look outside and I know that it's daylight or it's dark. Even here in Alaska, I still know if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, even though it looks like it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the summertime. I just think that's sort of a waste. I think they just didn't have anything else to do. But all in all, I love the look of this watch. I love the custard color, printed indices at the hour markers, and overall, great aesthetic. Now the dial on this watch, I love. In fact, I picked everything out about this dial. There's maybe 12 different background dial options. I love the subdials. I love the fact that it's layered, and I love that Snoopy printed on there in a nice 3D print. I also like the fact that I could customize it. I could have done all things random on there, but I really like the Apollo 10, like I said before. I think it's very well done. I chose more of the vintage look, so it has more of a subdued indices that are printed along the hour markers, and everything else is just sort of, monotone, but that's what I wanted, except for that Snoopy that just pops right off that dial. Now inside this watch is the Seiko VK63 Mecha Quartz movement. Again, let's unscrew these so you can see the functionality. If you see, I already have it running here. If you hit it once, it starts up the chronograph. Hit it again, resets, fly back. It's extremely nice. Inside this watch is the VK64 Mecha Quartz flyback. So the first one was a VK60. Inside this watch is the Seiko VK64 Mecha Quartz flyback also. The good thing about each one of these watches is each one offers the flyback function. Now, what is a flyback function real quick? Well, you hit the pusher to start the chronograph and you see it ticks, each one at 5 ticks a second. So it gives you the illusion that this is an automatic watch. However, you hit it like this, and you reset, and it flies all the way back into place. This is extremely nice. I'm really happy to see this. The movement inside this is the Seiko VK61 Mecha Quartz flyback movement. So let me stop this, fly that back. It's funny because we had a VK63, a VK64, and now the VK61. Now, I'm not a big fan of the ticking second hand at the 6 o'clock, but I mentioned that earlier with the Daytona. However, its simplicity does have something to say. It's not necessarily a deal breaker. Now, next is going to be the water resistance. This has 100 meters of water resistance. It's printed right there. Water resistance, 100 meters. That's extremely nice to see on a chronograph, only because chronographs really aren't meant to be, super sporty when it comes to water resistance rating. So you could wear this every single day in any situation without any problem. The water resistance on this watch is 100 meters, even if it doesn't have a screw-down crown. Even if it doesn't have screw-down pushers, this still offers 100 meters of water resistance, which means it is a great everyday watch. The water resistance on this is only 30 meters. It doesn't have anything screw down, and it only has a pressed case back. Not really the greatest in the world, especially not for the price point of this watch. Now, how would you wear this watch? Is this watch casual? Well, I would say that this kind of goes between casual and dress. Now, most chronographs are not meant to be dress watches. However, in 2020, which is when this is being filmed, if you have something on a nice bracelet like this, especially when it has the dual finishing, it can go on something like a suit. It matches just fine whether or not you're in khakis and a polo, shorts and a t-shirt, or in my opinion, a suit. So this goes in all three categories. It is a casual watch. It also can be worn dressed up. Now, the wearability of this watch, I think because it's on a stainless steel bracelet, this is all brushed, it is more subdued than something that's high polished. However, a lot of people think of high polished as being more dressy. Now, this entire thing is extremely subdued because it's almost completely brushed, except for the edging. That's the only polishing on the entire thing. Can you still wear this in a suit? I think so. I think this is more casual. I think this is more uniform. If you are in a dress uniform, this would look amazing, especially because it does have that vintage pilot aesthetic. However, could you get away with this wearing in a suit? Sure. I think you could, especially because it just looks like an old chronograph on your wrist, and that's okay. It also matches the casual category. So argue with me or not when it comes to the dress, that's what I say. Now, how can you wear this watch? Well, it does come on a distressed leather strap. No bracelets are offered, and it does have a Cordova or it does have a canvas strap. So it's basically only for casual wear. Also, another downside. This is the cheapest watch out of all three. This is only $90, and that is on eBay. If you go to other places, even Amazon has this for $90. So it is going to be the cheapest watch, and overall, I think this punches very high. Price on this watch is just under $300. Is it worth $300? I'm not sure. If you guys go ahead and look at my original review on this, I think this watch, if you can get it on sale for about $240, I think that's a pretty good sweet spot. I think the $295 price point for this is a little high. However, it's not completely out of the ballpark. The price point of this watch is under $400, just under $400. This is the most expensive watch out of all three. In fact, you could buy the other two and still have money left over if you wanted to buy this. To me, honestly, I think this is priced way too high for what it is. And I think that, well, Undone, their whole marketing is that you can customize whatever watch you want. However, I think for a mecha quartz movement, something that is also in a watch like the Pagani Design. Now, they are two different variants of the Seiko VK mecha quartz movements. However, they're extremely similar. So if you're going to have that movement also in a watch that's under $90, then why couldn't you lower the cost of this watch? Now, out of all 8 categories, they are basically in order from what I think is the best to the worst when it comes to all different categories. Now, the Pagani Design, $90. And it has basically everything everybody else offers, except it also has a sapphire crystal. This can be worn basically anywhere, and it, I really like the vintage appeal of the Aeromat, but this is for most people. The wearability of this is far higher than this. The cost is a third the price of any of the other ones, and it basically offers the same. The Aeromat is second because it does have the missing subdial for the second hand. It does have that really nice vintage appeal. It does only have a pressed clasp on the bracelet, which is really low for me. I think they could have done way better on that. No screw down, anything. However, it still offers 100 meters of water resistance, but this can go with basically anything. I really like the fact that the lug is smaller, so the comparison of a 42 millimeter watch compared to a 40 millimeter watch, the lug size on this is smaller than this. So even though this is larger, this wears slightly smaller. And then there's the Undone Snoopy Aces coming in at the rear. I like the fact that you can pick out the Snoopy, you can put anything on the dial, and I really love this watch. The dome K1 crystal is a sort of a downside to me. I think they price them way too high, and the wearability on this is only casual. So no wearing this in any type of dress situation. So overall, 1, 2, and 3. Now, all in all, it's pretty eye-opening when you compare little things like crystals, finishing, case sizes, dials. It really is very kind of curious about what a watch company can do with $90. Then someone tried to sell the same thing for like 400 bucks. So, I mean, it's, again, sort of eye-opening. Now, if you like videos like this, hit that subscribe button down below. Leave a comment on the content you guys would like to see. On this channel, I have a lot of videos coming up in the future, so make sure you're hitting that notification bell so you guys can be notified when I drop the next video. Till next time.